So, Frank, I appreciate you joining me today. And you're one of those people, like I follow so many people on Instagram and I listen to a lot of podcasts. And you're one that actually jumped off the page at me because I was really enjoying it and listening to some episodes. There was one, I can't remember what it was called, What Doesn't Kill You Make You Stronger. And I thought,
Mm,
I'm going to reach out to this guy and see if he picks
yeah.
up in Hawaii and he'll talk to me or whatever. So, thank you for doing this.
No, I appreciate that. Appreciate the kind words, man.
So, like, I guess for anyone who doesn't know you, I guess tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm originally from California, the central area. Uh, I come from a Hispanic background. Parents came from Mexico in the 70s, migrated towards Central California. There were just a lot of fields there, right? And, they left Mexico for work, right? And they actually left a lot of their, uh, my brothers and sisters, they were already, I wasn't born yet. So they left them there, right, hoping to make money, send it back, and then just start kind of bringing everybody over slowly. Yeah, and then I was a firstborn in the United States in the 80s, and yeah, so kind of grew up not really having much direction, right? I wasn't a bad kid. I'll be honest. I just didn't put much effort into a lot of things, right? I just didn't want to put myself out there. So I kind of just navigated life that way up to through high school, which I didn't graduate actually. I never graduated high school. But yeah, so that's kind of like the first quick 18 years of my life, right? So yeah,
How did you end up, like, are you in Hawaii now?
correct.
How
I'm
did
in
you end
Hawaii.
up there?
Yeah, so like I said, I didn't graduate from high school, right? But an opportunity came a year after I was supposed to finish high school. I was working at a grocery store and as a bagger. This is like a year after high school supposed to finish, right? So he just came up to me. He's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about joining the military?" And I didn't really want to talk to him, right? And he can tell, and he could tell at that time. And he's like, "Tell you what, just give me your phone number. I'll give you a call. And we can talk later." I'm like, "Cool." Right. And he just kept hounding me, man. Like he was very persistent. And yeah, eventually I kind of gave in and I talked to him. He came to my house and he gave me the whole brochure spiel, right? Where, I know you don't have a high school diploma, right? But we can help you get your GED, but you have to do it in boot camp, right? And, I went through the whole process and ended up in boot camp and took my GED. And I passed it, thankfully, because or else I would have been kicked out. So, yeah. And my first duty station was Hawaii, man. So 1999, yeah, came to Hawaii uh, and ended up meeting uh, my wife in 2001. We dated for a while. She's from Hawaii, and yeah, we married in 2003, and um, eventually I spent about half of my career. So I did 20 years in the military in the Navy,
Wow.
from 1999 to 2019.
Wow.
And I say about 11 years of my career were spent in Hawaii, right? Obviously, being deployed too, right? I did about 6 deployments. I was stationed overseas for a little bit too. So, yeah, now it's home. So we have a daughter here that I love that she's being raised here. She's 6 years old now. So, yeah, so
That's,
this is home now.
that's awesome. Was it a big decision to leave the military?
I was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 I was ready. I was super motivated. Uh, I kind of moved up pretty quickly in the ranks, right? Like 10 years in. But I felt burnt out, to be honest. Like pushing yourself so hard, right? It just kind of broke me down a little bit. So imagine, I like to kind of put people in kind of give them a little feel of what it felt for a 19-year-old kid, right? At that time. Imagine cruising through life, not really putting much effort, right? And all of a sudden, you're put in this position where you have all this responsibility and people are counting on you, right? And I didn't want to let people down, right? Because they actually believed in me, right? So my way of repaying is just, hard work, right? And do what I was supposed to do. But that stress and pressure just became too much. So I kind of, kind of struggle with my own mental health. too, right? Kind of going through that. And around 20, say about my 12th year in, I was all like, I'm already halfway through. I'm just going to make it to 20, right? And kind of retire out of the military, right? So I had that mindset already. And probably around 15 years out, like 15 years in, and then kind of 5 years away from my retirement, I had to kind of figure out what I wanted to do next. And one thing I enjoyed about being in the military is just kind of talking to the junior guys, right? And even though they're in the military, they're still kind of lost in a way, right? Because they're just kind of looking for more than just the military. So, we would have like cool talks, um, giving them a little bit of guidance. And, it just kind of felt easy, right? To be in that position where people come talk to you. And then also, one thing I really enjoyed too was kind of listening to people's stories, right? Their experiences, their struggles. And, we all come from different backgrounds, right? We grew up differently, um, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we still get stressed out. We still get anxiety, right? We still get sad, right? But it just looks different how we get to that point. And, I was super curious about how the human experience kind of, sees things this way, right? So, yeah, I was all like, I can either be a school counselor. At first, I wanted to be a school counselor. But I'm not gonna lie. I looked at the pay scale and I was like, oh, they don't pay that. So, yeah. So that was I was all like, no, never mind. And then yeah, so I explored other options, right, when it comes to counseling and therapists, and um, marriage and family therapy really stood out to me, right? Just of their approach. It's a systemic approach to therapy, right? It just kind of tells us that our struggles and challenges are in the context of someone's environment, right? So we're all part of like different systems in our lives, right? So our family system, our working, our coworkers, right? Um, Whatever, friends. Um, but they all have an impact on the way we feel, right? So, in a sense, all our issues are relational, right? Like if we have issues or with our relationships, whether family, like I just said, your significant other, right? It's going to cause some turmoil, right? Some conflict, and also our relationship with ourselves, right?
Sure.
So yeah, so MFT, marriage and family therapy, stood out to me. So I started uh, so I took my first college course in 2003, right, when I was still on active duty. And it took me 13 years of just taking one class at a time to get my associates, right? But once I got my associates, I feel like I accomplished something cool.
For sure.
So I was all like, you know what, this actually feels pretty good. So let me go for my bachelor's in psychology. That's when I'm already thinking this is what I want to do, right? So I ended up getting my bachelor's in science or science in psychology at Chaminade University here in Hawaii when I came
Nice.
back, and yeah, on active duty. So going to night classes, right? They offer courses on base at that time too. So uh, and then about 8 to 9 months before I retired, I started my master's program.
Good for you.
And yeah, and then I appreciate that. And master's in science of science in counseling psychology. That's what it's in. And then yeah, so once I retired, I just continued that, right, and graduated with my master's in 2021. And I did internships and practicums in dual diagnosis day treatment centers. So I was working with clients that had severe mental illness and a substance abuse disorder, right? And yeah, we're talking about schizophrenia, right? Schizoaffective with bipolar. So yeah, it was challenging because I was doing a lot of psychoeducational classes with them, right? So it was a lot of getting them to understand, their diagnosis and how to kind of manage it, right? Because by then, once you have that, it's not going away, right? So a lot of it has to do with ensuring they're, uh, you know, medical, medication compliant, right? But that was challenging. So especially when they have like visual hallucination and audio
Yeah.
hallucination, right? So I'll tell you a quick story. I love stories, man. I was in in uh, in in my office, and this one of our clients just kept falling asleep. Right, he was having a hard time staying awake, so I had to talk to him. And as he comes in, sits down, he's talking right to his hallucinations, right? And I couldn't get him to focus on me, and I just told him I'm all, and it just clicked to me. I'm all, hey, how many people are in this room right now? And he goes, oh, there's about four. And I'm all, so what are they saying? He goes, oh, you shouldn't be here. You're just wasting your time, right? And I'm all like, and I'm thinking I really need to talk to this guy about what's going on. So I said, hey, can you just ask him to leave the room real quick? And he goes, yeah, I can do that, and that worked. It was
No
interesting.
way.
Yeah. It was super interesting. So yeah, he asked whoever was in there with him to leave the room, and we talked about how it's important for him to stay awake, right? Kind of look at why he's having a hard time staying awake, right, and kind of just help him through that. So after that, it was okay. I mean, he still had his moments, right, but yeah, that really stands out to me of my time during that internship. So, and then after that, um, because we have to work towards licensure, so we have to do a lot of supervision and see clients. So I did kind of private practice. So right now I'm private practice and licensed in Hawaii as a marriage and family therapist, and mostly see couples and adult males right now. So that's kind of like my niche, I guess, because I really enjoy working with couples and adult males.
That's interesting. Well, for a guy who didn't finish high school, he seemed to have found purpose in
Oh, I love it.
education.
No, absolutely, yeah. And I'm actually in a doctor of education program right now.
Oh,
In
Frankie,
my
good for you.
yeah, in my dissertation. So
What?
yeah, I've been going for 3.5 years now. Actually, when I came, the military just showed me that once opportunities arise, kind of take advantage of them, right? So, like you said, I found my passion, so I'm always wanting to learn, right? And actually, I started my doctorate like the next semester. Like I need to keep going, man. I didn't want to stop, right? So it's been about 3.5 years, and I'm about say 8 months out from
Man, oh
finishing my
man. I
dissertation.
think it's
So
wonderful. Well, you're making not just the world better, you're probably building relationships, and I'm sure you're improving your own life, I hope, by all these
absolutely.
different programs as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Why do you find you're drawn to, marriage and family counseling? Is that, I
Mhm.
assume you have a positive family relationship with your own family. Is that where it comes from, or does it come from somewhere
It's
else?
actually the opposite.
Okay.
So I really don't have that great of a relationship.
Interesting.
Uh, well, there's nothing. There's no resentment on my side at all, right? But there's just not a connection,
Okay.
and
Okay.
you'll kind of get an understanding to why. So, like I said, my parents came to the states, right, and left their kids behind, right, and started slow because they had their own separate kids before getting together, right, and so they're half brothers and sisters. So growing up, they like early on in my life, like 1 to 4 years old, our brothers, my half brothers and sisters, would live with us, but then leave, right? Because they were already like in their teens, early 20s, so they wanted to kind of start their own lives, right? And so even though I have 12, or is it 13? See, I even lose count. So 13 half brothers and sisters, we're not close um, because of not growing up together, right? Um, and not having a connection early on in my life, at least, right? Because that's important, right? Having that connection early on in someone's life, um, and so they tried to reach out, right? They did reach out actually, as I'm growing up, right? But I think there was very like unrealistic expectations to, hey, when we get together, we're family, right? We, you make us a priority, we make you a priority, type of thing. But I just didn't feel it, right? Because we
Mm-hmm.
never had a connection. So growing up, that caused a lot of issues,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially when I joined the military, and them wanting me to visit them more often, right? Because I was away, show up to family events, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you got to think, I'm in the military, across the Pacific Ocean. They live in California, so I'm spending money flying there, right? I'm taking vacation time to come see them, right? And when I do show up, like they want me to visit other family members, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of them coming to me. So that's a common issue in the military for people in the military, right? Is people kind of not taking for granted,
Mm-hmm.
what how our lifestyle is, right? So that yeah that kind of created some friction, right? Because I was upset, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
like seriously, I mean, like why does it have to be like this, right? And they feel like I should drop everything for them, right? Like because family is supposed to be family, right? It's supposed to be priority, but so now it's just not really having a connection with them, right? I have one brother I would say I'm kind of close to, right? We stay connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but that's about it, man. Yeah. So that kind of led me to wanting to work with
Interesting.
families, right? So to bring them more connected, because being emotionally connected with someone, it just is more fulfilling, right? And you can grow from that, right? So with that lack of a connection, man, yeah, you're starting off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, it's interesting. People always talk about friends are the family you choose, and we put a lot of emphasis on
Mhm.
family, but just because we're family, maybe that doesn't automatically make it okay to have, I don't know, accept maybe a relationship that isn't that great or helpful or supportive. And a
Mhm.
lot of those relationships we can find just from the people around us, even though we're not related. So I
Absolutely.
assume you found that, I want to call it family, quote unquote, in Hawaii.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just with my wife, right, and her family, and then having our own family now, right. Um, in the military too, right? You make some very like great bonds,
For
right?
sure.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, especially early on in your career, because I feel like that's where we form our strongest bonds. It's kind of early on. So yeah, I'll definitely feel that, what it feels like to feel, like you got each other's back, right?
Oh,
So it's good.
probably, I would say more there than most other industries I can even imagine.
Hmm.
Who are
Yeah.
some of the people, Frank? Like, I know you
Hmm.
took a lot of friends and close relationships from the military, but is there any people in particular that have helped you on your journey to where you are now, whether in counseling and so on?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Uh, I think the foundational, like the people that believed in me, right, initially, kind of pushed me to pursue more, right. So I would kind of mention, um, early on, it was, uh, he's retired now, Ventura Robinson. He's one. He's a retired Master Chief. Deborah Belvi, she was a chief. She's retired now. She really believed in me. And then post Navy, for my career, we have the faculty over at Chaminade University, Honolulu. So yeah, like Dr. Hawkins, she's a huge mentor of mine. She's a professor over there, and yeah, they always believed, I can be like a great therapist, right? They were always encouraging. And one thing going through these programs is you get a lot of feedback, right? So, you know, and that's always hard to hear, right? Like, oh, why do you think about this, right? Or, what about this, right? But, the military kind of set me up to be able to take that feedback, right, and not take it personally. So, so that was huge for me, because back in the day, I would get defensive, even if it's like honest, like, hey, they want to help you get better, right? Just kind of like, breaking down those prideful
For sure.
uh, traits, right, can be hard, right? But yeah, so and definitely my wife, right, super supportive.
I like that.
You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, it's very supportive, like in my career, and now as I'm always wanting to do more, even though I've kind of accomplished what I have so far. Like I'm always, like I said, I just want to keep growing, right, in this field. So,
Oh, that's great. And there's no reason why you can't. I
mhm.
find a lot of people get to a certain age, like 50, oh, I am who I am. And I
Mhm.
don't think there's no reason. It doesn't have to be formal education. As long as you're open to learning and developing, and it can
Absolutely.
go the rest of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
How has the support and the kind of the mentoring you've had so far influenced you, Frank, in how you kind of mentor and guide others?
Yeah, yeah. I approach it as everybody's experiences are different, right? So I don't. It's not like cookie cutter type advice, right? It's like super, very applies to their life, right? But honestly, it's really about I don't really give advice, right? Because that's just the therapist in me, right? I ask questions that actually help them find their own answers, right? And I think that's just a good approach in general, right? Yeah, and people. I mean, sometimes we just need a little prompting,
For sure.
right? That's how I approach it. Just I just get curious, right? And and um, and eventually they kind of get a little bit more clarity, right? And kind of come up with their own answers, right? So
That's how you parent as well?
right now it's difficult with the 6 year old, right? Yeah, yeah. It doesn't matter what questions I ask, man. It's just
Right on.
not going to get any deeper than no, and her saying But she's an amazing kid, man. So far so
Oh,
good.
that's cool. I got to ask you, when you were talking about mental health earlier, I talked
Mhm.
to same thing, probably a 20, 25-year guy in the military a couple days ago, and I'm in
Okay.
construction, and
Mm.
we had a lot of overlap with a lot of the mental health and addiction issues in both of our industries. Have you seen some of that in your 20 years as well?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, right? Because we're not giving tools and skills to navigate these hardships, right? So we kind of revert to our old habits or things that we kind of saw growing up, right? So if you saw your parents coping, by anger, right, or drinking or smoking, right, you're going to pick up on that,
For sure.
and you're going to take that on, right? So yeah, I saw a lot of that, a lot of alcohol abuse, right, addiction to whatever, right, and it just takes over your life and it ruins lives. Yeah, and then when it comes to mental health, just not being able to feel like I can talk to someone, right? That creates a huge barrier for a lot of people. So it's interesting when it comes to seeking help, right? Um, Even in my own life I never heard anybody say to me really is like, don't talk about emotions, right? Don't talk about how you feel, right? But you kind of got a sense that you shouldn't talk about it, right? Because the environment the environment just didn't feel like you could, right? So
Yeah.
you were never encouraged, right? Without encouragement, you're going to be stuck, right? So just because you're not hearing people say men shouldn't cry, right? Stop being a little the B word, right? It doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden going to be okay talking about things, right? And I think life would have been different if people actually encouraged it more, right? And be like, hey, I know we don't really talk about this much, right? But if you ever feel like something's going on, be feel free, just reach out, right? Feel free to reach out and talk about it, right? And but that all starts from the home, right?
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? That's where it all starts. So yeah, and so a lot of people struggle because of that, right? Because you do have your toxic stuff, right? Where you
For sure.
shouldn't don't you're going to sound weak if you talk. But also on the other side is if we just had a little bit more encouragement in our homes, things would be different.
No, I like that. I know it's been described by me in construction as well as, in the
Mm.
military. A lot of the reason why people don't share, even if they're comfortable sharing, they don't want to ever make it weird with the guys or the crew or whoever, and they don't want to feel like they can ever be not counted on, so they just basically don't bring it up. But a guy like you who's pretty approachable, Frank, you probably are naturally more of a safe space for guys. So
Mm.
even if someone does say, "Hey guys, you doing okay? You come talk to me and stuff." If people don't feel that they're talking to a safe person, they still won't do it. I bet.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah. Even when so when it comes to helping people with trauma, right? Um, the number one thing that has to happen first before anything, before processing anything, you know what it is. You just said it, man. Creating a safe space. That is the number one rule, right? It doesn't matter what technique or approach you use, right? If a person doesn't feel safe, you're not getting anywhere.
I've used that expression in like a work setting. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you have challenging work groups and project teams, and I've talked to even young people in particular who don't want to put up their hand ever. And I said, you know what, if you ever don't feel comfortable putting up your hand, that means we haven't created the right
Mm,
leadership and the right level of safety for you to feel comfortable to do it. So that's on us, not on you, you know. And you're
I love
basically
that.
echoing because it's the same things.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great that you do that, right? Because that is spot on, to be honest, right? Yeah.
So I gotta ask you, Frankie, like, what drew me to you is I love your podcast.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So
Yeah.
what prompted you to hit record the first time?
Yeah. So one thing that makes me feel that kind of energizes me and just makes my mental health feel so much better is being creative, right? Creativity, just creating something from initial thought or idea, right, and making it into something is just very feels great, right? And so I wanted something a little different. I don't know how many people have actually heard it, but it is different, right? First episodes are probably like 10 to 15 minutes long, right? They're not going to be that long, right? And my thing is I'm going to provide enough, well, not enough, provide something where it gets you thinking just a bit, right? I'm not there to kind of solve problems, right? But I'm going to give you information that's going to make sense and how it can relate to your own life, right? And then you can kind of take that and kind of do your own thing with it, right? And I'm a huge, you know, rap. Like I grew up listening to rap and hip hop, right? So I wanted something in that kind of feel for it, right? So my intro and outro, it's kind of like a rap, right? I had an artist kind of record the intro and the outro,
Nice.
and also the instrumental he uses in those intros and outros is actually the what I talk over throughout the podcast, right? So you kind of hear that music in the
Yeah.
background while I'm talking, right? So it's actually essentially it's kind of like a whole song, right? Where he kind of brings me in right with my introduction, and then I get into the topic right while the music's still kind of playing, kind of low, but enough for you can hear it and to kind of hear me clearly, right? And it just kind of fades out into the outro. So yeah, so I just it's super cool that and it's called Cruising for Clarity with a Therapist, right? It goes back to my upbringing, right? Low riders, right?
Nice.
We're just going for a cruise down the street or whatever, and a lot of people get clarity when they're driving and listening to music in general,
For
right? I mean,
sure.
and that's how all my ideas come from me driving and listening to music, right? I'm always kind of thinking about things. So, that's why I call it cruising for clarity. In my sense, if I need a little bit of clarity, I'll go for a cruise, man. And it doesn't have to be in a car, right? You can be cruising, take a little cruise down by walking, a little bike ride, right? That's what people do, right? To kind of clear their mind a little bit. So, yeah, that's how I came up with the name Cruising for Clarity.
No, I
And
like that. I always talk about motorcycles a lot because
yeah,
we grew up on them, and I said, man, if you ever need to decompress, you want to know what therapy is? Go on a motorcycle.
yeah,
Between the sound in your ears, the wind on your chest, and your head on a swivel, making sure no one is doing anything stupid.
yes.
Like
Mhm.
all the stresses of my job, my work,
Mhm.
my relationships, everything just vanished. So I'll
Yes.
go on a rip for maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes even,
Mhm.
and I'll get off that and I feel lighter, Frankie. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
wild.
That's awesome, and that's the way it should feel, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what these. And I used to love. And I'm from California, so I go on road trips all the time when I was in
Nice.
California, right? Going up and down the coast or whatever. In Hawaii, we don't. You can't take a road trip, right? We're on an island, so. But a lot of it's me being stuck in traffic, to be
Yeah.
honest, because traffic gets pretty bad over here. So.
I don't know where in Hawaii you are. My wife and I went for the first time. It was
Okay.
last winter, and my wife had been once before, and oh man, I could see why people fall in love with it. Just the weather and the people and the pace, and just
Absolutely.
I feel really fortunate to have at least seen it for a couple
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. It's amazing out here. I live on Oahu, right? The where Honolulu is, Waikiki.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to think where we're Kauai.
Oh yeah, that's an awesome island too.
Yeah,
I've been there. Yeah. Just being at the resort most of the time, but yeah, it's
yeah,
beautiful out there, man.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, I'm gonna pin you down again for another talk here, probably in a few months. But before I let you go, one thing I want to ask you about, Frank, is do you have, like, I listened to all your episodes. Do you have something positive you can share with anyone struggling out there, whether they're not working? Um,
Mm,
a lot of people are just stressed out right now because the elections either in Canada, the U.S.,
mm.
just the uncertainty in the world and the increasingly divisive, polarizing nature in social media and life. Like, how do you give people encouragement right now that might be struggling with that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, man. Right? It's hard to be encouraged with everything that's going on around us,
Hmm.
right? Um, so I like to reflect a lot. Um, right? Reflection is a powerful skill. Um, anytime you can kind of get your mind or your sensations feeling to a time when it was good for you,
Hmm.
right? It can be actually listening to a song that takes you back to your childhood days, right? Or family events or whatever. Anything that can get a rise out of you, like feeling good, I would totally do that. Listen to those old tunes that you like, right? Reach out to a friend that you haven't talked to in a while, right? And talk about memories, man.
I like that.
Yeah, stuff that just felt good, right? Because that's real. That's something that you still have, right? And can actually still feel. Because something happens to us when we get connected to that type of memory,
Hmm.
right? And you can kind of forget for a bit. You're not going to forget everything that's going on around you, but at least for the next 10, 15 minutes or whatever it is, you're feeling something different,
Cool, man.
right?
I like that. Well, Frankie, genuinely, thank you for your time and thank you for taking my call today. And maybe we'll catch up in a few months. All right.
Absolutely, brother. Just hit me up, man. Whenever, I'll be there.
I appreciate you.
All right, brother.
Bye.